Hey Ricky, you know what's awesome?
What's that?
Jaws.
Yeah!
Dude. So I said we weren't going to talk about the sequels, and we will talk about the sequels later, but it's just my coming to Jaws story is like I think about it now and I'm just like still blown away that those movies exist, right? Because they changed my life completely. I mean, my life hadn't been going on for very long, but when I was about 6.5, 7 years old, we moved from Houston, which is nowhere near the water, to Portland, which is on the water. And it's a small town, and it's a small town where you ride your bikes everywhere. So you're cruising along the road, there's water to one side of you, no matter which way you're going. I mean, there's bays, and so the way that it's situated, it's a suburb of Corpus Christi, which is a bigger town, which is still not a very big town. But you can see Corpus across the bay, and then there's a long causeway bridge, and then a harbor bridge that goes over into Corpus. And so then there's this big bay, and it's not deep. I think the deepest it gets is something like 12 or 15 feet deep at the middle. But most of it, you guys are out there wade fishing, like way off in the middle of the water. And so growing up, it's a little seaside town. So that first summer we were there, we got cable TV. My dad got the cable guy came and comes in and installs. Remember the big old honking cable boxes that were like bigger than most TVs are now. Yeah. And comes in there and sets that thing up and gives us the remote control and then sets the guide. And when he set the guide down, it's the Jaws 3. Jaws 3, where the shark's coming up and he's attacking those skiers. Yeah. And I was like, "What? I have to see this. This is amazing. Whatever happens." So Jaws 3 was the first one I saw, and I remember, my mom not so much, but my dad kind of being like, "Oh, this is goofy, whatever. You need to see the originals." I'm like, "Oh, you mean there's more?" Like there's more of these, because I'm in pure heaven here, because I didn't know hokey from nothing. I'm just like,
right, yeah,
big shark chomping, I'm in, right?
Yeah, and absolutely.
So then kick it back to Jaws 2, because that was always on late night ABC, late night movie. And I remember my dad recorded it for me off late night TV. Obviously the edited version of Jaws 2, but back in the day, for the youngins, back then, you used to record a show off TV, and then you'd pause the recording to cut the commercials out. And I had this, it's not dog-eared, but it was warped, this recorded over copy of Jaws 2 off TV, where apparently sometime in the middle of the night Dad got tired and fell asleep and stopped editing out the commercials. So like the first half of the movie, the commercials are gone. Yep. The second half, they cut back in. And I used to watch that thing until the tape wore out. And so then when I saw the original Jaws, it was probably maybe 6 months later. I know we're not talking like a long time between one to the next, but when I saw the original, I have been and am still blown away by that movie. And like, our poll was between Jaws and Star Wars. I love Star Wars. I'm a big Star Wars nerd. Always have been. Have Darth Vader on a t-shirt. My kids have Darth Vader on a t-shirt. But I don't think that anything impacted me in the way that Jaws did. I think that's probably the biggest horror movie, or not, just the biggest pop culture thing that's ever really gotten me was that. So
that's that those early fears in your life, and it's still there today. It's still in the back of your psyche. What happened in this movie, you're still afraid of, even to this day. If I go to the beach, That's still in the back of my head. I mean, so it's incredible how that movie had that kind of impact. My story's kind of the same. I don't want to ruin it too much because we did talking about the sequels later on. But I actually saw Jaws 2 in the theater when it came out. And I saw Jaws on HBO. This is around 78 or so, 78, 79. So the first time I saw Jaws was on HBO, which is uncut. So, that's the first exposure to seeing full-length movies on TVs with no commercials and no edits, language at all, and was just completely just blown away by what I was seeing. And what's amazing is the older you get, the things that you overlook at the young age are the things that really stand out to you when you're older. And you realize just how great of a movie this thing is. I've told people time and time again, you can leave the shark out. And you even saw that post that I think it was Gary that put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And, you can leave the shark out of the thing, and it's still an incredible movie just because the chemistry of those three characters is so strong. It's so strong. And, Jaws is forever locked in at my number 2 spot of all time. Which is a weird thing to say because there's 2 movies that are above it, but they're always tied for first.
This is, hey, man. Like, which ones are those? Superman
and Phantom of the Paradise.
Okay, yeah, right.
Those are my favorite movies, and they kind of go back and forth of which one's my all-time favorite, but Jaws is always a steady number 2.
It's, yeah, I kind of go back and forth because I have a lot of favorite movies. It's kind of like with albums. It's like, what's your favorite album? It's like, well, I don't know. Were you talking about rock album? Are you talking about, like pop or what? Like, what do you mean my favorite? Like, that's a really hard thing to answer. But Jaws is, I'm going to say, depending on my mood, always going to be in the top 3 most of the time in that top slot because. Again, just even kind of like, and I don't want to keep talking about it because we'll talk about it at another time, but even like Hokey Jaws 3, like I went back and watched Hokey Jaws 3, and even my technical brain sitting there being like, okay, this is technically ridiculous. I still had that pull. I still wanted to go to the beach. Sure. I had that call to the water. I still had that childlike fear of, that whole mystique that was there, that was just, by a kid living in a seaside town in the summer because we went to the beach all the time, and there's guys out wade fishing and, the nets would bring in little sharks every now and then, or somebody would get stung by a stingray or something and you'd just be like, but yeah, so it's and I'm of those that you say you could, those ending scenes where the shark is finally revealed, you could probably, no, please don't say I'm advocating this because the hokey Lucas CGI stuff is ridiculous, but you could remove those scenes and still just with an eye, a splash, they were very effective.
Absolutely. We are threatened all the time with a remake, which is the biggest mistake you can make. You will never capture what makes this movie work because it was the determination of making it work, even though the main subject of the film didn't work 90% of the time. So it was the determination and the acting that made this thing work so well. You'll never capture that with being able to just do a fake CGI shark. I've always said, why don't they just go back and tweak just a thing here and there, very subtle, I don't know, give Bruce maybe some eyebrows, something to that extent instead of totally trying to redo it and make it all super CGI. The movie still works. It's still in the top 100 movies of all time for a reason.
I agree, and I think that Jaws is what made the career of Steven Spielberg. Because it's it's a great story in the hands of a master director who had a cast of brilliant actors, who had to persevere. Which, if you really think about the story of Jaws, they've got I mean, they know what it is, but they have no idea how big of a pain in the ass this thing's going to be.
Yeah. And
they just have to persevere. They have to just keep on working and overcome, because the alternative is to get sunk, literally.
Right.
It's so many great scenes, again, without the shark, just like who would have ever told you pre-1975 that you can get, hey, see this pallet? I'm going to float this across the lake, and it's going to be the most scary thing you've ever seen. Because that dock coming after that guy while he's swimming, I mean, I've seen this movie 1,000 times, and I still, just cringe up. I'm like, oh, he's not going to make it this time.
Well, come on, man. The opening scene, when she gets out in the water, you don't have to see everything to get an emotion out of it. And I think that's what's amazing about a lot of the films that came out around this time period. We sometimes what you don't see is scarier than what you do see, and that's using your imagination to fill in the gaps. We've lost that because now we feel like we have to show everything all the time, and it kind of ruins that magic. That's the reason, Blair Witch is such a love or hate movie, because it depends on your imagination what it does to you. If you don't use your imagination, it's a piece of crap.
Right.
If you got an imagination like what's in my head, I never quite got over it.
quick little, because we're talking about Jaws, but you're talking about the imagination. Quick little tidbit of so Blair Witch, right? So my girlfriend at the time, she and I went and watched Blair Witch, and afterwards we got out because it was a local showing at a little indie theater, and I think it got out at 11:30, and there wasn't a whole lot open, and so we were like, okay. So she's like, "Oh, just take me home," and so where she lived, pull into the little parking lot of her apartment, and they had these low hanging. There was just live oak trees, but they were relatively old, and they kind of hung down. And I don't know why, before or since or what, but she and I were sitting in her car, which is a little compact car, and we were sitting there. We weren't touching each other. We weren't doing nothing. We had just seen those weird-ass horror movie where people had puked everywhere. So it was not the mood, right? We were just kind of chatting briefly about so what you going to do? What's going on tomorrow? And one of those trees leaned down, and the branch scraped the top of her car, and I just about died. And I still remember that. That was the best part of Blair Witch, because I enjoyed the movie, but that after scare, whenever the movie was on my mind, and complete, just oh my god.
What's amazing, I mean, we're talking about this, but really this is what Jaws was for me and for millions of kids our age, because
they were people afraid to go in the bathtub.
Absolutely. I checked the toilet. Dude. I would literally go, when it's time to go to bed, I would turn off my light switch and run as fast as I could and jump into bed, just in case the floor turned into water.
Mm-hmm. Oh, dude, same.
And Bruce was going to come out of it,
I remember that, and exact same thing was, and we had blue carpet, and I remember that. It was so easy to imagine that was water, or that, just one wrong step, because in movies back then too, there was a lot of quicksand, so you just have no idea when you might just step into the abyss, and then you're up against Jaws. I think it's funny.
There's a great meme of that somewhere. It says, growing up, I thought quicksand was going to be a much bigger problem than it really is.
I mean, it was a big deal in movies when we were little. But, so yeah, man, everything from beginning to end, even just the town, the town, everybody kind of knows each other. This is an unusual occurrence. They don't see this, they're not unfamiliar with sharks, because obviously some of them go out and catch them. They're not, but they're not used to a rogue shark, obviously. This is a much bigger deal than than any of them are expecting. So even like, I guess in the book, and we don't compare book to movie, but in the movie there is that still kind of questions like, so you're gonna just let people randomly get eaten? Why don't you close the beaches? Like financially, it's understandable, but you should probably at least hire Quint today instead of like next week or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And in the book, he was getting pressed on by the mob, so he couldn't. Like there was kind of a subplot. So, but in the movies, like we don't. This is they kind of chalked it off to Brody being new, kind of like this just happens. This is just how this is. Like it's like barracudas and sharks, and you want us to close the beach on 4th of July, like. Right. This is whatever. It could be 10 sharks out there. We're not going to do that. That's just not what we do.
Right.
And
much like the pandemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
How long can we keep the economy from not going? I mean, if you do that, you're going to have even bigger devastation. But lives are at risk both ways.
Lives are at risk either way. So you have to look.
So how do you make that decision? And there's pros and cons on both sides of that in this story. So again, this is just another example of like we were talking about with the zombie movies and stuff. You just put them in this dire situation, and you see the good and bad in people. You bring out the worst in people.
Oh, certainly.
And again, you can't say enough about this cast. Almost, it doesn't matter what else you see these guys in, maybe Richard Dreyfuss, but they are forever locked into these characters in Jaws.
Richard Dreyfuss too. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, even in What About Bob, I'm like, shut up, Hooper. Like,
Hooper!
You got soft hands from counting money. like, dude, everything. Like, he'll never not be Hooper. And
that's great.
And like Roy Scheider, he was in other stuff. He was in Blue Thunder, and he was, but he was always going to be Chief Brody. Always going to be Chief Brody.
Yep. I got excited because we kind of had Chief Brody in space there for a little while.
Mm-hmm. But man, that Robert Shaw Indianapolis speech. That's, I think really that is the linchpin. Like again, you can remove the shark, but you're keeping all the horror because when he's describing that battleship sinking and the sharks coming after him and why he won't wear a life vest, that's another one of those like with the dock floating. It's like you can feel that nervous energy, like literally like creeping up whenever he's talking about waiting to be rescued, and he's already set it up that the sharks are eating people, and that chopper's flying down and pulling people out. Or the plane flies over, and then not the chopper. That wasn't.
Get to the chopper.
that was Predator. But no, like he's waiting for his turn to get rescued, and the sharks are still attacking. Wild men are being pulled out of the water, and just that scene, and to kick it a little bit harsher. If you want to like just make that scene all the worse, I shared a link today on the Facebook page of a Hardcore History, which is Dan Carlin does a really, really deep dive into historical events, and he did it like an hour and a half long on the horrors of the Indianapolis. And he starts off talking about Quint and Jaws and how that's kind of made it into the pop culture, but then he describes, because there's multiple books by survivors about, and the one thing that made it all the more frightening is he explains that they were in tropical waters. So when the sun came up, they could see about 40 feet down.
Yeah.
The water was clear. So they could, from the surface, they could look down and see those things creeping around underneath them. And how, because, I mean, I'd always been thinking, you see a fin, you see green water, it's like maybe you see them at the surface, but to have that kind of visibility all the way down, that just, it made it all the more real. Like, oh my God. How does one go from surviving something like that to just like having a Big Mac? Like watching some silly cartoon or getting in an argument with his mechanic. It's like, do you know what kind of stuff I've been? Like, I have been almost eaten by 1,000 sharks. Yeah. Like, I just can't imagine. It's like the horror is just so... Yeah. And then to have it turn around.
It's just one of those iconic scenes of movie history. And, you know, what's even, like you said, what's even more shocking about it is, you know, the truth behind what's really going on. You just get a snippet of the story through Quint, which is blood-curdling. It's almost like a campfire story that you're sitting around listening to because you get so drawn in. It's just amazing, man. And that was just a write-in, right? I mean, it was just kind of a last-minute, hey, we need some dialogue. And who was it? Was it Gottlieb that wrote it out? I think that's who it was.
Yeah. And they gave it, because they needed some rewrites and some stuff, and they gave it to him, and he added most of the good stuff.
Right. Yeah. He's great at that. You know, and even like you said, it's the small town thing. It feels like home. I mean, when the secretary's coming out and saying, the kids are out karate chopping the picket fence. I mean, that sounds like something that would happen in my hometown on a Saturday morning, you know, that kind of thing. And, Chief, we need you to come by and look at this. I mean, it's so small town.
Everything's a big deal. Like, nothing's a big deal, and everything's a big deal at the same time. Yeah. So he just kind of never gets a minute to just kind of be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, of course, whenever they're like, oh, we got to hunt for a shark. And then, like, everybody goes out in the boats. And like, they can't control the madness. And Hooper's like, they're going to drown. You know, like well. And Brody doesn't know that lifestyle. So he's like, well, there's nothing I can do about it. You know? Like,
he's the perfect underdog, right? I mean, this is the chances of him being the one that kind of, you know, gets you through it all is just another amazing thing that Spielberg can pull off. Because he even hates the water. I love the fact of, you know, he kind of gives a little peek of his scar there for a second, and you never get a real story of why. But obviously, it has something to do with
police work and why he's in Amity, probably.
Right. And, you know, so, you know, you've always got all those things that just make you go, man, this is well-crafted movie making. You know, from the whole Kittner situation, you know. I mean, you know, what can you say? I mean, the exposure of that for one thing, but just the whole reaction with the mom coming up and slapping him, and you knew this was out there, and you let us go swimming anyways. I mean, it leaves you floored.
Yeah.
Not because she slapped him, but because the way that she just delivered that is just phenomenal.
Ironically, I read earlier today that COVID got her.
Yeah.
Mrs. Kittner.
A couple of months ago, I think,
Just strange how things work.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, you're right. Her delivery, her just that whole scene is just. I mean, and there's no shark in it. Like I showed you those like leaked test shots where Bruce wasn't working. I mean, and the stills are pretty scary, but if you watch the video of it, it kind of falls over. Like they got a mannequin on the tube or on the raft, and the shark kind of comes up and then just kind of falls onto it, and they're like, yeah, that doesn't work. You know, from the front it looks pretty neat, but from the you know, it's like he just kind of falls off the platform. But the just with the boy thrashing in the water and the bubbles and the just that one big fin flap.
Yeah, you get the flip, you know, like the full on attack, and it's hidden by the sun. Ironically, you know, because of the way the sun is shining, you just get it's kind of like when you see a fish flop up in the water, but you don't really see it, right? You know what happened, but you didn't really see the fish, right? Same deal. I mean, you see just enough to know it was big.
That was there's certain scenes like that too. It's just like that's iconic. That's like The Godfather. It's like
right.
In
the scene for me though, man, the scene for me that gets me every time is the guy that's in the little dinghy boat that's out there. Hey, you kids having trouble? When his boat flips over, and that's when you see Bruce coming sideways at him, right? He's tilted like he's going for his arms or legs or whatever, his legs. But that's what the first time you really get to see scale of him versus a human. And that scene of him being underwater, it's kind of like what you were just talking about. Those guys being trapped out there and being able to see down and see the creature. We are seeing it because the camera's an overhead kind of shot. And you're seeing this thing come at this guy. It terrifies me even to this day. It's one of the most miraculous looking things I've ever seen. I don't think you can't duplicate it. You know?
It is great, and it's also it's that little. Again, we're talking about a horror movie, so you're gonna have some blood and gore and stuff. But the shark reaches in and grabs him, and then the very next scene is the man's entire leg floating in the water, which means that the shark just took out his entire torso,
right?
Like bit him in half.
Yeah,
right there.
He didn't just bite his leg off. He bit half the guy out.
Yeah, he bit the top half of him off and bit his middle part out, and then cut the top. And so you're dealing with something that is primal and relentless, because he knocked the boat over, he bonked the boat to knock the guy under the water, so he's smart. And here's one of those funny things. So I got so into sharks that summer and every summer afterwards. I've got megalodon teeth up here. My daughters have got me because they know that I love sharks so much. When I'd go to the library, I read every book that was available on sharks. Dude, I was 10 years old. I knew how the nervous system of sharks worked, because there was just I read it all, everything.
Yeah.
The best one were the ones with the shark attacks. And I was looking over my shoulder because it's on the shelf over here somewhere, but I can't put my eyes on it without taking a break, but which we might in just a second, because that's one of our things now. We got to pay for the to keep the lights on here, but that book that Brody is flipping pages in. I don't have the same book, but my book has those same pictures, and it's from the 70s, right after Jaws came out, and it's one of my I've had it since I was a little kid. But I used to just read, and they talk about how sharks, it's like all the stuff that Bruce does, jumps out of the boat and stuff like that, and they're like, no, they don't do that. That's not what sharks do. That's fiction. Yeah. Until they started catching them breaching, taking those seals down,
right?
And it's like
those air jaws,
those old guys. They're saying how sharks. Because I've seen one where the great white jumps in the boat, just on a YouTube. They're out there fishing. The shark just jumps in the boat, and he's like a 10-foot long great white, and he's just flopping around panicking, but nobody wants to get near him because. But hey, speaking of that, we have run long. Let me take a break real quick, and I will see if I can pick up that book and show you some cool scenes. We're going to take a real quick station identification, and we'll be right back.
There is a creature alive today who has survived millions of years of evolution, without change, without passion, and without logic. It lives to kill. A mindless, eating machine. It will attack and devour anything. It is as if God created the devil and gave him jaws. This is Universal's extraordinary motion picture version of Peter Benchley's best-selling novel, Jaws.
I just found out that a girl got killed here last week, and you knew it. You knew there was a shark out there. You knew it was dangerous, but you let people go swimming anyway.
Did you see that? It's all psychological. You yell barracuda. Everybody says, huh? What? You yell shark. We've got a panic on our hands on the 4th of July.
Is it true that most people get attacked by sharks in 3 feet of water, about 10 feet from the beach?
Yeah. What we are dealing with here is a perfect engine, an eating machine.
We're not only going to have to close the beach, we're going to have to hire somebody to kill the shark.
Bad fish. But I'll catch him and kill him.
Did you hear your father? Out of the water now!
This shark, swallow you whole. You're gonna need a bigger boat.
That's a 20-footer.
25. 3 tons of them.
Hurry up, he's coming straight for us. Don't screw it up now. Don't wait for me. Now! Shoot! Watch your tail! Give him room! I can't! He's trying to run! Oh! Cut quick! I can't hold it! Hurry! Break it up! Brody! Oh! Everybody out of the water!
None of man's fantasies of evil can compare with the reality of Jaws. Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, Jaws. See it before you go swimming.
So that's the
Man-eating sharks.
that's the internal page, and then let's see, kind of towards the back here. Oh, that was a good one.
Wow. It's nuts.
Yeah. Then it says got the making of Jaws. But yeah, talks about... This doesn't have the pictures as much as it's got the descriptions of the attacks. Like so-and-so is here and they ripped off their arm. I've also got that one from the 70s. So...
Wow.
I'll take some snapshots and post them up because it's pretty fun.
Heck yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the attack of the guy in the pond, and again, that was one of those where that kid had the fin on his back. So they're like,
yeah,
it's a hoax. It's a hoax. So that's a good old fashioned bait and switch on a horror movie. It's like
he made me do it. He made me do it.
Oh yeah. Little Sean sitting there singing the Muffin Man song, like such a nice day at the beach. And then you've got obviously that's where they're going to go ahead and hire up Quint because
it's the damage is done. Got to have somebody to come and clean up the mess.
Mm-hmm. So. And we can't forget the dog, because everybody always talks about the horror movie. Like, they don't care about, you can have as high a body count as you want, but if you kill the dog.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah. Pipette, yeah.
Michael Myers kills the dog pretty early on in Halloween.
Yeah.
Jason kills a dog in part 2. And Jaws kills a dog. Bruce kills a dog in Jaws. So... all 3 of them are guilty of that. So whenever you're looking for that saving grace, when you're trying to humanize them and make them kind of an anti-hero, they all kill dogs.
They all kill dogs. Yeah, it's such a thrill ride movie. It's you always see the debate. And you said it earlier, you called it a horror film, but there's always the thing is it really a horror film or is it not? to me, horror is anything that scares you. So everybody's not scared of the same thing, but
true.
That doesn't necessarily make it not horror. So to me, this has the impact again of my lifetime. I'm more scared psychologically of what happens in this movie than I am Jason Voorhees.
Of course.
So to me, that's horror.
Well, and I think one of the reasons, and growing up, different, like I always liked scary movies, and whether, like, another one that's debatable is like, well, a couple of them that are debatable, like Terminator or Predator. Are these horror movies or are they action movies? It's like, well, whether it's a horror action or an action horror, there's that horror element in it, right?
It's got elements. Yeah.
And but if the purpose of it was to scare, so like this wasn't a small town rom-com with a strange antagonist. Like the whole thing is about how much it sucks to get eaten by sharks. Because they go into great detail about how much that is not a cool thing to have happen. From the very first scene to all of the attacks, whether you see a shark or not, those people are not having a good time. And it's frightening. And with the music, I mean, from the very beginning of the movie, that's primal. I mean, that sounds like something deep growling in a cave. Like there's just whatever's behind this is not a good place to go. So I'm always strongly in the horror camp. Like it's a scary movie. Like it's designed.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the music, you're getting a POV at this point, right? Just like we do with the serial killers, the old giallo movies. You're getting the killer POV. It's the same thing. You are the shark, and you think about all the scenes, just like the girl that's swimming out there at the beginning, and you're the camera coming up, and you're going right to her legs, right? So you are the shark. So it's no different than when you're Michael Myers with the mask and you're seeing through the holes and the stabbing. It's the same concept.
Oh yeah.
And it's just amazing how it still works.
I think, and like here in a minute, we'll start talking about that third act where they get on the boat. Because that could have been its own movie. Yeah. Like really, there's so much wonderful stuff going on that boat with just everybody. But I still think it's amazing that sequels to ripoffs to modern CGI, they keep talking about they're going to make a sequel or a remake or whatever. It's like, why don't you make a good standalone shark movie that is even half as good, and we'll talk. Because if you can't do it, then just leave it alone, right? Like, because they've had shark movies since, and they, and they don't have the same. And they have got shark movies with a lot more gore and a lot more kills and a lot more jump out at you, get you, but nothing has that nightmare producing that Jaws does. So let's get on board the Urca. Gonna ride out. Need a big.
Well, and I do my fair Spanish ladies.
I mean, you got old Quint that, given his Indianapolis story, why would you stay on the water? Like he's courting death. He's an Ahab at this point. Like,
he's Ahab. Yeah.
He's straight up like searching. He's going for revenge, and he's spending his life killing sharks because they took so many of his friends. But yeah, he's on this rickety boat that But he's good. He's good at what he does. He knows what he's doing. He's he's capable. Obviously, much more capable than the other two guys. And but yeah, you're out there on that boat. And,
just the slipping into madness. And it goes back and forth. You're not for sure which one is actually losing their marbles, but it's all of them. Mm-hmm. They're all losing it, right? I mean, they're stuck out there with, Hooper's getting beat up on all the time because, he's not going to make him. Quint's not going to make him feel like he's good enough the whole time. You're not a real fisherman. You don't know what you're dealing with. And, of course, that all builds until you get to the Indianapolis story, and that kind of changes some perspectives of some stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Then you got Brody out there who
completely out of his element.
Shouldn't be out there, but, he feels like it's his duty to be involved because of the Kiltner kid and everything that's happened. So, it's just a perfect setup. And it really becomes an adventure film at this point, right? Because it becomes less scary at this point. Because it's more of chasing the barrels. And then the barrels stopping, you reach down to get it, and it takes off again, and you get your legs hung behind the ropes, and it's all those things.
Yeah, when he's running along the sideboard there, and he slips, and you're just like, like don't fall off that. Yeah. And we're just, and the thing is, like, it's a shark, right? It's a fish. You're with a shark fisherman. You're with a guy who charters his boat to go out and catch big fish. That's what his job is. It's what he does all day, every day. And here you are. So it never occurs to you, like, it never occurs, I don't think, to Hooper and Quint that they do need a bigger boat, that they are out of their element.
Yeah.
Brody, who is so thoroughly out of his element, sees that shark and immediately recognizes, like, this thing's bigger than the boat.
We're in trouble.
we are in trouble here. And with everything that, obviously, then even Quint's like, dude, nothing ever takes down 3 barrels. Like, this is how we fish. It's like, shoot them with a barrel, and the barrel holds them up, and then I can just go harpoon them or shoot them or whatever. This thing's pulling down 3 barrels. Like, how big does something have to be in order to achieve that kind of just brute strength? Like,
right.
And if it's strong enough to take your barrels down, how strong is it if it comes up and hits your boat? Which obviously we find out later.
Right.
It's pretty capable.
Pretty strong.
And I just think it's, because for centuries, sharks have followed boats because people throw stuff off the back of them, and so sharks know that boats are a good place to go hang out and wait
pick
for
up
a
some
meal.
extra stuff.
Especially if you're chumming, so it's like whether or not the shark is supernaturally intelligent or not, it just makes sense that he'd be attracted to that boat. So,
Well, that's what I was fascinated with sharks too, and they even say it in the movie, they're the perfect killing machine. Like you said, all they do is swim and eat and make baby sharks. That's it. There's nothing else. There's no thought process. There is just devour, and it's. I don't know. That's that thing that stays with you. It's the same reason that people like, going back to the horror movie stuff, you like the expressionless face on a killer. Because it's almost like they care less. Your death means nothing to them. You don't know if it pleases them or if they feel bad about it because you don't see the expression. That's the shark, man. It doesn't react. It's not a matter of your feelings. It's
right. And there are animals in the ocean that do react. You've got dolphins and whales, and you've got certain seals and things that you actually can have a I don't want to say like a conversation with, but you can have a rapport with. A shark, you're not going to be able to train a shark to do anything besides like eat. Maybe go over there if it hears it's like you can shock it maybe, or you can buzz it and make it go over there because your stimulus response, but you're not going to get it to perform tricks for you. Like not in any real sense. And so, it's hungry or agitated. It's going to eat.
And the other side of that is it'll eat anything. And that's the other part of it. It's not solely looking for a certain thing. It has its preferences, but just like when they split the shark open and there's license plates and cans and that's anything that moves in the water that they think is food, they're gonna chomp on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what they're made for, is because essentially they're just swimming garbage cans. That's when a whale dies, what's gonna happen to it? The shark's gonna come break it up for the smaller things, and that's what it's for. Think but you're like, oh, you know, they'll just eat anything, and they're just the plain face killer, just like emotionless. It's like, that's the thing with like a Michael Myers or whatever. Like, why is he doing it? Why?
Right. What's the motive?
You know, he's obviously not hungry because he just let it fall. You know, the shark though. You know, that's another thing that I think makes it a little even scarier than your slashers. And I kind of had that brain fart for a second of like, why am I going back to Michael Myers? Is because the shark, you at least understand what it is. It's hungry. It doesn't care, but it's going to eat you. It doesn't care. Like, it doesn't care if you scream. In fact, if you scream, it might even make it more hungry. Like, but you know, it's got a reason for existing, and they exist. They're there. They're in the oceans right now.
Like, they've been here since pretty much day one, and you know, that's always been my theory. People think, oh, dinosaurs, they were killed off by, you know, asteroids or volcanoes. Nah, I think the sharks got them.
Sharks got them. Something, yeah.
Brontosaurus went to get a drink, and you know, big old Megalodon just came up and took it down.
I wouldn't doubt it. Well, it's like the stuff you're talking about, like Jurassic Park is made almost the same as Jaws. It's like the same formula, basically, and it's like the same thing that scares you in the water scares you on land. It's like the
T-Rex and the great white shark are the same creatures when you look at both of those movies. Mm-hmm. They really are, because they're kind of the king, but they don't really know they're the king. They're just doing their thing.
Yep.
Right? So you can have all these smart dinosaurs and stuff, but at the end of the day, when you come down to face the T-Rex, you ain't got much of a chance.
Yep. He's going to eat you.
Yep.
He's going to pull you right out of that outhouse.
And just the fact of, you know, they even talked about T-Rex having, you know, a very small brain, again, like the shark, and also having not great vision. Mm-hmm. So if they just see movement, they think it's food. So that's the reason they bite car tires and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I remember being a kid and telling my dad, like, hey, Dad, because he was always kind of joking because he was just that way, you know, like, but I was also probably, like, my daughter's always giving me the facts about everything now because she's just into reading. She's like, hey, Dad, did you know this? Did you know that? Did you know this? Did you know that? And I'm like, so now I understand my dad's responses to stuff, but, like, it's like, hey, Dad, did you know sharks don't really mean to bite you? They just, you know, it's a mistaken identity. They really just want to eat seals. So they're not really mean to people. He's like, son, it doesn't matter. Because when a great white shark makes a mistake, you're missing your bottom half, and he's not going to apologize. Like, oh, sorry. Like,
exactly.
Oh, that's a good point. So, yeah, it's like still not a good idea to mess with him.
Yeah.
So.
It's easy to want to defend something that is just being a force of nature that it is, but you don't want to mess with the force of nature. Yeah. You know, that's the thing, is, you know, you got to be smart about it.
Just stand there and look at them, and don't go where they go.
Right.
Which, of course, one of my big bucket lists is go swim with some sharks. Go to South Africa and California and get in a cage and go swim with them.
Ain't happening. Ain't happening. Like I said, I'm lucky to even step out in the water so far. Then, you know, and I start going, you know, I'm like, silly me, you know, I won't go out past any further than I can't keep my feet on the ground. But silly me, that's where they attack.
Yeah, right there. I'll tell you what, bro. Maybe I'm just an idiot. It's kind of like Frightmare. It's just like, oh, hey, Jason Voorhees, there's like 7 of them. They scared you to death when you were a kid. And I'm like, hey, guys,
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I know they're actors, but we went to Belize several years ago, and where we were staying, they take you out to this area, and it's called Shark Ray Alley. And there's this break in the reef where the fishermen would come, and then they'd dump off all of their offal. So they'd come in, they'd gut all their fish, and dump all that crap into the water. And so the sharks and the rays started getting used to knowing that that's where the food was. Well, that's a good diving spot, because then you can see all the wildlife that lives there and hangs out. So we take that tour, and it's just a snorkeling tour. It's not a full-on dive. But we get there, we get to Shark Ray Alley, and dude's sitting there being like, okay, like, here's the rules. And I'm just like, shoot. Like, into the water. I was like halfway into the water before I was like, man, I probably should have listened more. Because I was just so excited about meeting a shark. Like, hey, I love you, man. This is just big old nurse sharks, you know, nothing toothed, but still.
They still hurt you, man.
oh yeah, I know. I mean, they were cool though. But yeah, I was just like, it's like brother, I've been waiting a long time to meet you. So no great whites though. They're not trustworthy. So
talking about the kind of the finale of the movie too, I just was thinking about this because we talked about the Indianapolis story so much. And you almost wonder about, is Quint looking for that ending? Know what I mean? Has he already got it in his head that one day I'm going to be knocked off by one of these creatures? I hate them, and I'm going after them.
Survivor's
but I
guilt.
won't be satisfied until that happens to me. I've always kind of wondered about that.
I think that's why he destroyed the radio and flooded the engine.
Right.
It's like, we're not going, like, either I'm killing it or it's killing me, you know, and you guys are just collateral damage, sorry.
Yep. I really think that's kind of the thought process there, because that's kind of where he's standing at that point. And that's just as bothersome as what else happens in the movie.
Oh, certainly. Well, I mean, his death is obviously one of the most classic deaths in movie history, period. I mean, he's the hero. He's the sailor. He's standing at the end, and Brucey just gets him at a right angle and makes him slip. And whoop, there he goes. And man, that Indianapolis, because if you notice, you don't see Bruce very much, but you do notice that his eyes roll over white, which is like that's probably hard for them to have done because of the way the shark was so craptastic. But he does bite, and whenever he chews, his eyes cloud over with that membrane. Yeah. And when he's gurgling, just like, I mean, that's so horrid, But yeah, I think Quint had it. Again, survivor's guilt. It's one of those, like, all of my friends died. I survived. I shouldn't have. It was just by luck of the draw. So I'm going to just keep going out there and dipping my line in the water and seeing what, I'll just keep taking revenge till I can't take it anymore. And then, I totally agree, because that was
that's kind of the part too that people kind of give it a rough time about, because him, the shark jumping up on the boat has a moment there that's a little clunky looking, I guess you'd say. Mm-hmm. But reading the story, reading the actual book, I prefer this ending versus the Ahab ending that he was going to have. Which again kind of tells you the same story of, it was going to be me or him, but you're doomed to die together, kind of deal. It's Moby Dick. So,
but the thing is, it's Moby Dick only at in the final third. It's not the whole thing, because Ahab's insane the whole time, and that's what gets him in trouble from the beginning. I think because Quint's just a fisherman until he actually sees what he's up against, and that's what puts him over the edge.
Puts him on it.
This is the ultimate prize, or I'm not letting this one go. Like, I'm I'm taking this one down. Yeah. Or it's taking me down, but I'm not going home without it. And
just the fact that he slides down his mouth and all he's got is that machete and he's like jabbing it into the side. I mean, it's just like, oh, I mean, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
Man.
I just, there's two things about the finale, because obviously, exploding the shark with the tank.
Yeah. Tank, yeah.
Is iconic, right? But knowing as much about sharks as I know, like, I realize sharks are territorial, but I also know that whenever you put that much blood in the water, there's other sharks around.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Brody's just blown up Bruce, and Bruce is sinking, and those seabirds are coming and saying hello. Just how pants-crappingly scary that must have been when Hooper popped up out of the water right next to him.
Oh, yeah.
Like, bloomp! Like,
and the fact that they're just paddling back, and you're just like, I mean, you figure there's a frenzy going on at this point.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
They're just paddling along. Like...
That's, and then moving into the sequel where they're like, it's another shark. You're like, well, you don't say, because that's how this thing works. Like, you call the government and you're like, well, that one shark that exists? We blew it up. So you can go ahead and send in that file or whatever. Like, no, there's lots of them out there. Like, that one came from somewhere. That one has a mom.
Yeah. So I've got, I'm looking around, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 6 different versions of this movie. I mean, they're all the same version, but every time they release it, I buy it again. And of course, I just saw they're about to come out with a 4K transfer.
Uh-huh.
I have to buy it. I mean, it's a given. I gotta have it. Will it be any better than this 100th anniversary, version that they just came out with? Not 100th anniversary, but when they did the remastering and I mean, all that. They put all that work back into fixing the film and all that. It looks incredible. So I can't imagine a 4K being that much greater, but I hope it is.
I've got a couple of different versions, a couple of DVDs, and I probably have a VHS around here somewhere. Yeah. You said that you can't do it, but in Austin, y'all have Alamo Draft Houses up there?
No, we don't.
The theater? But you're familiar
with one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alamo in Austin does a tubing Jaws. So they've got the Lake Austin, and they project Jaws up against the building, and you sit out on the lake in a tube and watch it.
Yeah. I've seen people advertise that. My sister sent me that, and I was like, ain't no way. Ain't no way. Ain't no way.
I would actually be up for that. I think that would be pretty fun. But,
yeah. Can't do it.
Then the theater hires just like random people to like swim around and poke you whenever you're watching the movie, like coming out from underneath and like
Nah, not happening.
Well, this has been fun, man. Like,
we
should probably keep on going into the sequels and stuff, but we're kind of right up against the end of our showtime here. So any final thoughts on Jaws?
It's just a masterpiece. I think it's still going to be around for a long, long time. It's considered to be the first blockbuster that was ever kind of cranked out, and it's just got staying power, man. It's again, the shark is such a small aspect of it as far as visually. So much of the impact of the shark is not seeing it.
Yes.
And things being described. Hooper looking at the body parts of the girl from the beginning. You don't have to see it. You know. I mean, you can tell by his expressions just how bad it is. And yeah, it's phenomenal. I mean, Spielberg took Duel and just remade it a whole lot better.
You're right. Yes. Yeah, and Moby Dick, and I mean a lot of that was Benchley too. But if you've read the book and you see like there was I agree, because Jaws is a long movie, but the book has so many different subplots and subtexts or whatever. Jaws, the movie, is like a good parts version of the book with a much better ending.
Right. And we didn't even talk about the mayor. I mean,
right?
You can't forget the mayor. I mean, it's just as iconic as anybody else in this movie.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a lot of little minor characters that like don't really do much, but you remember them. So like the little deputy guy and the old guy on the beach who's like, just like different characters that are just, they're unforgettable. And even like the guy who's like it's a tiger shark. He's like, it's a what?
A what?
Like, just probably some random townie that they got to say a line because they needed a guy to say a line, and it's like, how would you not know what a tiger shark is?
And the dude's head they find floating in the boat underneath, and well, hello there, young feller. So it's just fantastic.
Well, awesome, man. Well, that has been, God, what are we now at, 11? 11
This
episodes?
is 11. We've turned it up to 11.
Yes. Well, cool. Well, as always, if you like what you're hearing, go to the Facebook group, join the fun, post pictures. We have all kinds of fun things going on there. Awesome Appreciation Thursdays. The show comes out every Tuesday. It gets posted there. It posts on YouTube. Rick and I are going to talk about some cool stuff that we're going to start doing for the YouTube page, as well as just some other side projects, because this was a side project that has, just really kind of, it's a lot of fun, and there's just we've got a lot of requests, so we've got to figure out how we're going to best do those things. So, but yeah, hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. What else? Do you have anything else? YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, always
Twitter.
And Twitter.
Twitter account, yeah. We've got a Gmail account. You know what's awesome at gmail.com. If you want to send us any kind of messages or questions or anything like that, of course you can do that on our Facebook page as well. So, if you've got ideas for things that you think are awesome that you want us to cover in an episode, put them out there. And don't be afraid to just take your phone and take pictures of things in your house that you think is awesome and post them. That's really what this is all about. Mm-hmm. It's not just us two talking about it. So my buddy Jared Bennett that I work with, he was saying something the other day about he collects garbage pail kids.
Nice.
And I was like, dude, take pictures, share it on the page and all that kind of stuff. He's the guy that put that Green Arrow superhero action figure out there. So, that's what this is for, is for everybody to just kind of show off your wares.
Yeah, show off your collectibles, show off your, even if it's not a pop culture collectible, but if you have some kind of cool piece of art, if you have something that you made, or, like if you play guitars and you got a guitar sitting in the corner, snap a shot of it and post it up.
Absolutely.
Well, cool. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and put a fork in that one because it's done. We will
all right.
We'll see you next week where we'll talk about something else that's awesome. So, have fun.